Welcome back to Prophecies of the End Times Global Ministry. It's Monday, August 18th, 2025. We have breaking news regarding the July 2025 ritual of the burning of the Red Heifer in Samaria. Conflict continues to break out over the truth regarding the Red Heifer ritual. Here's what we have learned so far. The Red Heifer, in order to be of the actual ritual, must take place on the Mount of Olives, in a specific spot. The ritual in question on July 1st was performed in Samaria. What's interesting about the location that was chosen by the ritual priest and the Temple Institute is also a controversial topic. Just listen to what we discovered regarding the location of the July 1st ritual. Sumerian religion, practiced in ancient Mesopotamia, was a polytheistic system with a vast pantheon of gods and goddesses, many of whom were associated with specific cities or aspects of life. Sumerian mythology explains the creation of the world, the origins of humanity, and the relationships between gods and humans. Key themes include the importance of ritual, the anthropomorphic nature of deities, and the concept of me, which were divine decrees governing the universe. Rituals and offerings were crucial for maintaining the favor of the gods and ensuring the well-being of the community. Sumerian religion and mythology had a profound influence on later Mesopotamian cultures, including the Akkadians, Babylonians, and Assyrians, with many Sumerian deities being adopted and adapted into their pantheons. Some scholars suggest that Sumerian myths influenced later religious traditions, including parts of the Hebrew Bible, Old Testament, though this remains a topic of debate. This information is astonishing, considering that the ritual performed was according to Adam Eliyahu Berkowitz, a test run, and has now been accurately confirmed to have taken place. And in addition, get this, it had been reported by numerous news outlets that all of the remaining red heifers have been disqualified. Hold on, not so, and we have the exclusive video by Adam to confirm it. Just watch this.
So, I put off making this video until I was absolutely sure of my facts and until I had all, if not most of the facts in my hand. The thing is, a lot of fake news and misinformation has been going out on the internet about the red heifers. And I have to speak up and set the record straight. There are a lot of people who care deeply about it, and there are a lot of people who just want to make a splash and make an impression and get views, and that's a problem. Maybe they have good intentions, but they've been spreading misinformation. So this is the real story. There was a practice run on July 1st when one of the 5 red heifers that was brought from Texas to Israel was burned. It was one that was ruled to be unsuited. We'll say unkosher. It was not unkosher for eating, it was unkosher for the red heifer ritual. It was ruled to be unsuited because it had more than 2 black hairs. So on July 1st, it was slaughtered and burned on a platform, a wooden platform. The platform was entirely suited. This was a practice run to practice and work out the details, because it's a very complicated mitzvah that hasn't been done in 2,000 years. So they built the platform to be correct for the purposes of the mitzvah of creating the ashes that would be used to purify Israel. So on July 1st, that practice run was carried out. The cow, again, was not suited for the mitzvah. So even from the outset, there was no intention to produce ashes that would be used to purify people. That was not the intention. And the ashes were indeed not suited. Of course, anyone who has seen videos or the images of that practice run are aware that it was not done on the Mount of Olives. And the only place that the ceremony of the Red Heifer can be carried out is at a specific spot on the Mount of Olives, on Har Zaytim. It was, in fact, the practice burning was carried out in Shomron, in Samaria. It was carried out on a kosher, suited, proper platform, wooden platform. And the Kohen who carried it out was a pure, I want to emphasize, which is quite exciting, a pure and suited Kohen. For people who are unfamiliar with Jewish traditions, Jews have always been very scrupulous about protecting the tradition of who is a Kohen. So it is not unusual to find a Kohen. Every community has Kohanim, and we know who they are. And if you are not from a family that has a tradition of being a Kohen, then you are absolutely not a Kohen and cannot become a Kohen. So that being said, the Kohen was not only a true Kohen, but he had also had all the requirements to be considered as pure as possible. Meaning he was not born in a hospital, he was home birth, had never left Israel, had never gone into a cemetery, and had never come into proximity to a dead body. So he was ritually pure and suited to carry out the real Red Heifer ceremony. So he was chosen to carry out the practice run. I want to emphasize that. Also, someone said it was done in that way to fool the government. The government is not involved in this at all. The practice run was not done to fool anyone. Okay? That's not the way this is done. And that is just a horrible lie. It was done to practice and learn and work out details. And an awful lot was learned. This is not the first practice run that was carried out. It was the first practice run that was carried out on an actual red heifer, albeit one that was unsuited for the mitzvah, one that had too many black hairs. There was a practice run done by Professor Zohar Amar. It was done, I want to be very careful. It was done, it was done by Professor Zohar Amar in 2019. And an awful lot was learned in that. And also in this practice burning, an awful lot was learned. So these are important, these practice runs, but they are not the actual ritual, and they do not produce ashes that can be used for the purposes of purifying Jews. The one that was used in the practice run had been inspected and certified as not being suited. Okay. There, I do need to make a correction. The Temple Institute released an announcement I wrote about it in August 6th. So it was around about that time, let me be precise, on Twitter. It was on August 5th, I got it the day after, and they wrote, and I quote, so far we have been frustrated by the appearance of more than one non-red hair on all our potential candidates. That seems to mean that none of the red heifers that are remaining, of the 4 that are remaining, were kosher. None of them, that seems to say that none of them are kosher, and that's what I wrote. I have since been corrected, and I love being corrected. I love finding out, oh, you were wrong. Now you have an opportunity to be right. There are 2 of the red heifers in Shiloh that are deemed to be most probably unsuited. They have far too many non-red hairs to be considered as viable candidates. There are, however, 2 remaining red heifers that are potentially viable. So there is still hopes and possibility that 2 of the red heifers in Shiloh will be deemed proper for a real red heifer ritual to produce ashes, to purify Israel. There are still 2 candidates, possible candidates, and there are 2 that are not. So that needs to be corrected. They are not all unkosher or unsuited. Okay. Also, the government is not part of the process. It's very important to emphasize. This is entirely in the hands of the Temple Institute. They are the final authority on this. And under the auspices of Rav Azaria Ariel, I'm pursuing a connection with the Sanhedrin to find out if the Sanhedrin is going to be involved in this process, because it's at the point where we need a central authority. This is my opinion. I'm adding my opinion, which is there was so much misinformation and so much confusion about this. I think there needs to be a central authority, as there was in the time of the temple. Most people don't realize, but the Sanhedrin actually was located in the walls of the temple. It was half inside the temple and half outside. The reason being that halacha, Jewish law, connects holy and mundane. We guide our lives according to the light that comes out from the temple. So I personally feel, and this is Eliyahu Berkowitz, please do not say that any organization has announced this. I believe that it is time for a central authority to be established to oversee the processes, many of them, because a lot of things are happening for the temple. So, well, I'll get back to that in a minute. There's also been people with the ashes from this practice run, and they've been displaying them and walking around with them. If they are ashes that are suited to purify people in Israel, then that is a grave sin to be handling them. They may only be handled by a pure Kohen. For a non-Kohen or an impure Kohen to handle the ashes of a red heifer is absolutely a sin of the gravest kind. Okay. There's also been talk that the ashes taken from that practice run are being used to heal people. That's also a grave sin. If they're not kosher, do what you want. They're ashes with no significance. If they're kosher ashes, they can only be used for their sanctified purpose, which is to purify people, purify Jews specifically. If you're using them for any other purpose, in halacha we refer to it as me'ilah, which is an improper use of something that has been sanctified. It's a grievous sin. Grievous. So I hope for those people's sake that when they handle the ashes and when they say that they can be used to heal people, that they are doing that with the complete acknowledgement that those ashes are fake, that those ashes are not ashes of the red heifer. They are ashes of a red cow. Okay, that being said, here comes my personal note. And I go back and I apologize for repeating myself. I am a little bit unorganized, but this has gone on and it's getting so out of control that I had to put out this video. A year and a half ago, for various false reasons, a furor erupted on the internet where people started saying, oh, the Jews are going to prepare the red heifer, and they even said sacrifice, which the red heifer is not a sacrifice. Anyone who says it's a sacrifice, they kind of don't know what they're talking about. They said, the Jews are going to sacrifice the red heifer on Passover. There's so many things wrong with that statement. The reason why they said that is there was going to be a conference, scholarly conference about the red heifer. And every year, before Passover, every synagogue around the world, we read the portion of the Torah dealing with the red heifer. Why do we do that? Because on Passover, we bring the Korban Pesach, the Passover offering, and it's the most important sacrifice of the year. So therefore, we want to be on the highest level of purity as possible. So we review the laws of purity before Passover, including the laws of the red heifer. So there's a tradition to read that every year before Passover. Now, people who heard that, but really were totally ignorant of Torah, totally ignorant of Judaism, said, oh, that means the Jews are going to do the red heifer. No. And I ended up doing videos, which I don't enjoy doing, though I've met a lot of very nice people through it. I ended up doing videos just to stop the lies about it. It causes damage. It's actually creating a wall that's making it so much more difficult to actually bring the third temple. If you don't want the third temple, fine. Well, it's a Jewish thing, so you don't really have a say. And I know from Christian theologians that this whole thing about the third Jewish temple being the temple of the Antichrist is wrong. It's not accurate. My scholarly, learned Christian theologian friends are all very supportive of the red heifer. That being said, there was so many lies that I had to speak up. And it's happening again. And it's happening from the craziest sources. Anyone who says now that that practice run was an actual burning of a red heifer that produced ashes that can purify Jews, I don't want to say lying, but they're telling something that is not true. And it is an obstacle to the final redemption of Israel. It is the opposite of good. Okay? Now, as I said, there was also misinformation coming actually from the Temple Institute. We're at an interesting stage in the redemption where things have been happening for quite some time. If you think that the only thing that's been done to bring the third temple is the red heifer, then you don't know what you're talking about. If we wanted to start the temple service and bringing offerings and everything, we could literally start it in 3 hours. We do not need a temple structure. We could literally start it in 3 hours. Everything is ready. Everything has been prepared. We've been working on this for decades. Okay? It is not the lack of the ashes of the red heifer that is preventing us. We are actually required to begin the temple service and bring offerings even in a state of ritual impurity. So people who say, oh, we need the red heifer to start the temple, to build the temple, to start the temple service, that's inaccurate. That's incorrect. Okay? There's a huge amount of scholarship that goes into these topics, these issues. It was given down on Mount Sinai, and from Mount Sinai until today, Jews have been studying it. So for anyone to jump in with one or two supposed facts in their hand and think they understand it is stunning. That being said, the Jewish nation, we're not set up yet to really handle what's going on. We don't have Kohanim organized. They used to be organized into groups, and each group had their time of the year that they went to Jerusalem and served in the temple. Okay. We had a Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin right now is not operating at full strength. We had a Kohen Gadol, a high priest. We had a Lishkat Beit HaMikdash, like an administrative authority for the temple. They had a temple accountant who kept the account books for the temple. The temple was big business. They had tokens. You wouldn't bring an animal. If you didn't have an animal, you'd go buy a token, give it to the Kohen, and you would get an animal for your token. We don't have that yet. We're not quite organized on it yet. In my humble opinion, I think we're a little bit behind the eight ball on that. We need to get organized on the organizational aspects. One of those organizational aspects is the flow of information. I don't understand how people can say, oh, the red heifer was done. Really? Did you ask the Kohen Gadol? Did you ask the high priest? Did you ask the Sanhedrin? Did you ask Rav Azariah Ariel, who has been working on this for 15 years and has written books on the modern aspects of halacha, of Jewish law pertaining to this? If you didn't speak to these people, then who are you to open your mouth? You have no source. You're spouting baseless thoughts, not even rumors. So God willing, we're going to be moving forward on the organizational aspects, on the informational aspects. We're going to be moving forward towards serving Hashem in completeness. And that won't be done by some YouTuber. That'll be done by Jews, by Israel, by the Jewish people, by the Leviim, by the Levites, the Kohanim, by the Sanhedrin. Everyone in his place, and not someone grabbing a place that is not theirs. And part of the problem with that is, and this is something, there's a place for the non-Jews and a place for the Jews. The non-Jews do not go up to the temple. Around the temple is a soreg, a fence. And the non-Jews go up to that, and they bring their offerings to the Jews, and the Jews take it up to the temple. I'm not going to be acting as a Kohen. I'm not going to be acting on the Sanhedrin unless they ask me to, which I really sincerely hope they're not. They're smart men, and they can see me for what I am. Maybe they'll let me write articles about them. But everyone in their place, no one grabbing what isn't theirs. And that was way more than I intended to say. Oh, and one more final point, if I may. The remaining 4 red heifers are in Shiloh. I spoke to a wonderful woman named Moriah. Moriah is in charge of the, I'm not really sure what her job is, but she's in charge of the visitor center at Shiloh. And Shiloh is amazing. I would like to encourage as many people as possible to go to Shiloh. First of all, you will see the red heifers. Who knows how much longer we'll be able to do that? Well, they might be used, or at least 2 of them. God willing. So I highly recommend going to see them. They are now being kept behind a glass screen because we're getting serious and we don't want people to just handle them. Also, people don't realize that the tabernacle stood in Shiloh for more than 400 years, including the Arona Brit, the Ark of the Covenant. There is an aura of sanctity there. Okay, for over 400 years, that's where Jews went to serve Hashem in the highest possible way. So I want you to go there for that reason as well. There's a corner, there's an edge where it's known that Hannah, the mother of Shmuel, the prophet, prayed for him to be born. I remember watching my wife pray there. And my wife, for anyone who knows her, when she prays, she prays. And watching her pray there, if you ever want to pray for something, especially if you want to pray for a wife or pray for a child, that's the spot. Even more than Jerusalem. So I highly recommend going to Shiloh. Also, in preparation for the temple, we need to learn about the tabernacle. And also, there's also other lies going around that is not Israel, that's Palestine. We need to battle that lie and tell the truth. We need to go to Shiloh and say, yes, I am coming to Shomron, to the biblical heartland. I am coming home to the land of my patriarchs, the land of my forefathers. And I think for that reason, it's very important to go to Shomron, to go to Shiloh. And I have a few friends there now, thank God. I highly recommend it. Anyway, that's way more than I really meant to say. Thank you so much. Y'all be blessed.